Hey guys, what is up? Plastic Guy here, coming back with another collection video where today we're going to be taking another look at my ToyBiz Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie figures. It's been around a year since I made my last collection video taking a look at these figures, and it is definitely the most viewed video on my channel, and I'm so happy because those are my favourite figures to collect. And over the last year I've collected plenty more of them, so I thought I'd make this new video where we take a look at the old ones as well as go over some of the new ones. We'll be taking a look at the Tobey Maguire movie figures this week, then I'm going to plan on looking at the Andrew Garfield movie figures next week, and then after that we'll round it off by looking at the Tom Holland movie figures that I have in my collection. So please guys, if you haven't already, go down below, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, and let's not wait any longer. Let's take a closer look at these old ToyBiz Spider-Man movie figures. And here is my Raimi Spider-Man Tobey Maguire movie figure collection, and this is probably going to be my collection for the foreseeable future. I feel like I've got most of the figures that I really wanted from these films, and I've even got a lot of doubles from these figures, so as I go through them I'll say what ones I have doubles of. I'm not including the Spider-Man 3 5-inch movie line in this video. I did recently do a video where I took a look at all the Spider-Man 3 5-inch movie figures that I've got. Feel free to check that out. And also, this is like 99% of my Raimi collection. I do also have like the massive 18-inch Super-posable Spider-Man, which is absolutely incredible. It is crazy, I love it, but definitely wouldn't be able to fit it in this video. And I do also have the 12-inch movie figures from the first film, which are superb. They look amazing, but once again, I just don't really have the space or anything for this video, but maybe I'll take a closer look at them in the future. I've tried to rank my collection here from my least favourite to my most favourite, which was really hard to do, and I won't be surprised if I change my mind halfway through this video. But let's just get started, and we'll start with my least favourite figure in my collection here. And I can honestly say the rest of these figures I like. I do really like these figures. It's just a case that I prefer some over others. But this figure I don't like. I think it looks pretty rubbish. He's very statue-like, the articulation sucks. He has this battle action feature which makes it kind of annoying to move the arms around, but he just doesn't look human. He looks very odd. The head sculpt's really nice. I do really like the head sculpt, but the rest of it just looks weird. And I know this is a bit of a deep dive, but I feel like this guy looks like the Squidward painting in SpongeBob. I'll try and throw up a picture here. But yeah, he's just a bit odd. He's not my favourite, and I'm not very fond of him. I do like the spider logo in the back here. Next up, we've got this guy who has turned into a bit of a Frankenstein figure for myself. I really like the head sculpt. He's not very well articulated again, like same idea as the last one. The arm doesn't have any articulation. He just has a straight out arm, and you would put the web in here, which I don't have. I think I picked this guy up in a bundle of these figures years ago, and he was missing the bottom bit of his foot here. So when I needed a Spider-Man Raimi hand, I took the hand off this guy. Hence the reason he's a bit of a Frankenstein. I do really like the head sculpt, but with the lack of articulation and everything, he's ended up next on my list. Next up, we have a figure that we recently took a look at on the channel. It's the Battle Attack Spider-Man 2 figure, and it is so low on the list for the same reason, just lack of articulation, and that is about it. Apart from the lack of articulation, this is a great figure. He looks really nice, and it is just the same thing that I said in that video. If you want to stand this guy in a neutral pose, he looks fantastic. I mean, he's got a really nice head sculpt. The rest of the body is really nicely sculpted. He looks really sleek, but you just can't get him in those fantastic Spider-Man poses that you can with the rest of the other figures. So he has ranked pretty low, but I do really like this figure. So next up, I don't know if I've already changed my mind, but I've put the Spider-Man 3 Black Suit Spider-Man, and I'm knocking Peter Parker over in the same time. So yeah, this figure I have so many problems with that I addressed in my video on this guy, maybe he should have ranked lower. Yeah, I think he probably should have ranked lower. He's a fun piece. I like how we get the Black Spider-Man from the film, but loads of problems. I think the sculpt's pretty weak, especially the head sculpt. It looks ridiculous. His chest seems really large, but I do really like the texturing on this Hasbro figure, and I do like the logos, especially this back logo. It's just not that great compared next to some of these amazing ToyBiz figures, unfortunately. Next up, let's take a closer look at Peter Parker. I've not ranked him in with the Spider-Man, he's not really in order here, but he's a good figure. Just same problem, very heavily sculpted. You can't even stand him up straight, his legs are sticking out like this all the time. You can't really move the arms at all. Yeah, he doesn't have the best articulation, but what he does have is a fantastic likeness to Peter Parker. I love this Tobey Maguire head sculpt. It looks absolutely fantastic. It's just a shame the rest of the body isn't articulated, but for a display piece, this guy is fantastic. And I wish I still had some of the accessories that this guy came with, but I've generally had this figure since I was like 4 or 5 years old, and all those original pieces, who knows where they are. And while we're looking at the more civilian characters from the Spider-Man movies, let's take a closer look at this fantastic Jonah Jameson figure. This figure is amazing, especially because it's nearly 20 years old, and the sculpt on this, I mean, that is Jonah Jameson. That is just phenomenal. He's got a bit of scuffing in the hair, but you know, that's to be expected. Unfortunately, he has this massive peg sticking out the back, and he has these battle features that personally I really don't care for. I don't really like the battle attack features on any of these figures, any figures at all, but you know, it's there. You wouldn't see it if you're just looking at the front, and the front is beautiful. This is a great figure. I'm not even picking up the new Jonah Jameson figure that Hasbro just released, because I still love this figure and I do prefer this look for Jonah Jameson. So yeah, great figure. Once again, not really ranked in order with the rest, I'm just ranking the Spider-Man, but it's worthwhile taking a closer look at these guys. Great attention to detail, just fantastic sculpts, and they've nailed it on this one. So next up in the Spidey list, we have the Spider-Sense Spider-Man, and to be honest, I really like this figure. He's very slick, very cool looking. I love the spider logo here, and that's just the paint on this guy. The paint is held up so well, especially for the age of these figures. Unfortunately, mine has a bit of a dent in the head, but it's really no big deal. This one has different eyes. It had a wee insert in the back. Once again, it's got this massive thing sticking out the back, which is a big downfall for this figure. But if you did have the original base, you can shove that in and his eyes light up. Even without that feature, I think the eyes look pretty cool, pretty glass-like as it is in the film. So I do like having this figure. No articulation in the torso, unfortunately, but the articulation everywhere else is really good, especially the hands. We get those articulated fingers to get them in that whipping pose. And yeah, back to the paint, just the webbing is held up so well. I think this guy looks fantastic when he's just standing here, and you can get him into some decent poses, just not as well as others with the lack of articulation in the stomach here. If this had the same articulation as the likes of the aerial flipping, yeah, this guy would be awesome. Unfortunately, he does lose points once again for this bit on the back, but apart from that, he's a great figure. So before we go any further, I knew this would happen. I knew I'd forget to rank this guy at the back, looking all good in box. And he's new in box, he's staying that way. I picked this guy up on eBay a few months back now for a fantastic price. And I wanted to pick this guy up new in box because I had a couple of these as a kid. And the reason I had a couple is because I'd always ripped this mask, playing with this figure, getting it off and on. And it sucked. It was so heartbreaking when that would happen, and when I saw this figure in box, I was like, yeah, I'm keeping that forever, and just keeping them in such good condition. The box is great. I love the box. Look at the Goblin and the reflection of the eyes here, and then we get the display card back. It is fantastic. It's so nostalgic, these figures, these card backs. It's great, and I love having this one in the collection. In terms of ranking them in order, I would probably put them before this Spider-Man here. So pretend it's this guy, and then we'll move on. I did forget to shove him in before, so we're looking at him now. And the reason I can't really put him in after the Spider-Sense Spider-Man is just the same problem I brought up with my least favourite figure in this collection, because it's the same sculpt. It looks weird, it's not a good sculpt at all. We do get the fisted hands with this figure, but the reason it's so good is because we have that Peter Parker head sculpt and the silicone mask that you can remove. So yeah, maybe it's a bit of nostalgia, but at the same time, this guy is awesome, and yeah, I'm glad to have him in the collection. So after Spider-Sense Spider-Man, it is this guy here. This is the Spider-Man 2 figure that is on the Spider-Man 1 Super-posable sculpt, and I do really like this guy. I always forget how much that I do like him. I do have a double of him because I actually got a bundle where it came with this guy and the other one. The other one does have a broken foot, but this guy looks so clean. The paint is great. I don't really like how long his neck looks. It doesn't even look that long on the first movie figure. I don't know why it stands out so much with this one. But he's still really nice, and it's just the case of I prefer the Spider-Man 2 sculpts over this sculpt, but it does have some great articulation, great paintwork, as well as the neck. I'm not a massive fan of the Spider-Man 2 back logo on the back of this thing, but yeah, I mean, apart from that, it's a great figure. He just isn't as great as the rest of the Spider-Man 2 figures, so that's why he is where he is on my list here. Then next up we have the wrestler Spider-Man from the first Spider-Man figure. Here he is with his human spider costume on, and then here he is as Spider-Man. I don't have the removable Spider-Man mask that this guy came with, but let's take a closer look at Human Spider first. He looks fantastic. I love having this version of Peter Parker, this version of Spider-Man. This is where it began in that first Spider-Man film. And this is a great figure depicting that version of the character. This mask can come off. I'm not going to do that though. I don't want to rip the mask, as I said would always happen when I was a kid. So I'm leaving Human Spider, all the outfit on, and thankfully I have this version of the character as well. This is the same figure. So when you take this mask off, you have this Peter Parker head sculpt, and it is unreal. Like, the likeness to Tobey Maguire on this for a 20-year-old figure is crazy. And that's what's sitting under this mask. Then we get the rubber costume here, which, yeah, it's a bit old now. I mean, you wouldn't really get these rubber outfits with the figures, but that was all the rage back then. You had so much X-Men movie figures with the same idea. And it works well with this guy. I mean, you get the arms that slot in and out, you get those gloves that he wears, and then you've got the Nikes on the feet. Just a great version of the character, something a bit different, and once again, I'm really happy to have this guy in the collection. So then when you swap all the parts over, you take the clothes off, you can turn him into Spider-Man, and as I said, I don't have the Spider-Man mask with this guy, but it's fine because I love this look. I love the Peter Parker head sculpt and the Spider-Man body. The downfall with this figure is, once again, it's a bit sculpted. He has this kind of hunchback, and he looks pretty bad if you try and stand him up straight. He looks a bit stupid. Yeah, he's got this hunch and it just doesn't work. But when you pose him, he looks fantastic. He looks amazing. He does have decent articulation. The hands look pretty good, but they're pretty big. Same with the feet. No articulation in those feet when there was articulation on the other figures. Great paint overall. It's a good sculpt. Once again, it's just lacking articulation, as you can see on the back and everything here. But I love it. I absolutely love this guy, and that's why he's ranking pretty highly. So then let's take a closer look at Doc Ock here. I got this guy not too long ago at all, and he is on my display. And he's fantastic. The likeness to Alfred Molina is pretty spot on, once again, for these older figures that didn't have the facial recognition technology, and it was all from sculpt. This guy's fantastic. I love the tentacles. I'm not going to move them around too much. I did have one break on me and I think it's glued. Must be this bit here because it looks a bit off. But for the most part, this figure's awesome. He looks fantastic. He looks like Doc Ock. And I don't really know what that bit does, and I'm not going to try it out. As I said, a couple things have broken on this figure. As you would expect with age, I love it. He's out on display. I love seeing him in No Way Home, and I hope we get a new Doc Ock Alfred Molina figure coming this year. I mean, it's 2022, the movie's out. I'm really hoping Hasbro delivers the goods. And while he's lying down on the floor here, we might as well take a closer look at Green Goblin. Once again, a figure I hope that's redone this year. He was unreal in No Way Home. I think this guy stole the show in No Way Home. He was just absolutely evil. He played such a good character. I absolutely loved Willem Dafoe. This guy is the real deal, and I'm so happy to have this Green Goblin movie figure in the collection, because Green Goblin is my favourite Spider-Man villain. I think Willem Dafoe plays him perfectly, and overall this is a great figure. It's just a bit old now, especially when you take the mask off and you see the Willem Dafoe head sculpt. I mean, it's alright, but it could be so much better, especially with the new facial recognition technology. The sculpt's really great, and I do really like that green paint as well, but it just looks like an old figure. We definitely need an update. This guy would rank pretty highly if I was to add him into the ranks of all the figures here, but yeah, I just wasn't too sure where to rank the other figures in with these Spider-Men, so I've kept it with the Spider-Men. Green Goblin's an awesome figure. A lot of these figures I've done full videos on, Green Goblin being one of them, so if you do see a figure that you think that looks awesome, I want to see more, feel free to hop on over to the channel page, and there is most likely a video on it, or there's probably videos coming out. For example, the Wrestler Spider-Man video, I've had that filmed for the longest time, I've just not edited it yet, but hopefully that will come out on the channel. Most of the other figures I've done individual videos on, so yeah guys, please do me a favour, check them out, it'd really help out the channel. And speaking of figures that I've done individual videos on, here is the Think Toys Spider-Man 3 figure, and I think this is such an underrated figure. Once again, I've not included this in the rankings. It would be hard to include this 10-inch Thinkway Toys in with these awesome ToyBiz and Hasbro figures, but I think this piece is so underrated. Since the video, I did fill in some of the webbing with Silver Sharpie, and I did fill out the wee bit in the eye that was chipped away, but this figure's lovely. We get the thwipping hands, and that just looks great. I love the movable fingers. Overall, the articulation is really good on this guy. I love him, and I don't see enough people talking about him. I never see him on Instagram or anything. This back logo is so clean. I think this figure is great. It is a bit bulky, but it is a 10-inch figure, and it is made for kids, but it looks fantastic. So yeah, really highly rate this figure. Okay, back to the actual rankings. So next up, after the unmasked Wrestler Spider-Man, I've got the Spider-Man 1 Super-posable Spider-Man. And this guy is just great. I love the colours on him. I love that light blue. The red is a bit faded. We've got silver in the eyes, and every other Spider-Man figure is pretty much white. So that is something different with this guy that I do really like. I think they've just captured the look of Spider-Man from that first film so perfectly in this figure, especially with the Spider-Man 1 back logo, and that is my favourite Spider-Man back logo from the films. So I love this figure. It's fantastic, and it's ranked pretty highly, but I do prefer these guys over them. So let's see what we've got next, and next up is the darker coloured Super-posable Hasbro Spider-Man 3 figure. And when I first got this guy, you can watch the video on him, I explained it all. It was by complete luck, a total accident that worked out in my favour, and I didn't actually realise that this was Hasbro. I thought this was a ToyBiz figure. I didn't know Hasbro used the sculpts for a couple of these figures in the trilogy line, and I made a video thinking it was the ToyBiz one. Thankfully I was corrected. Now I know that Hasbro used the sculpts and it isn't ToyBiz. Now I've got some of the ToyBiz, I can tell it's not ToyBiz, and that's why it is ranked lower. Personally, I don't really like the darker colours, and I hate to say it, but you can just tell that it's cheaper plastic. The Hasbro plastic isn't as good as what the ToyBiz one feels like. It feels a lot more brittle, just a bit cheaper really. I don't know, there's just something about it. It is a great figure, but it is definitely not my favourite compared to the other ToyBiz ones. So with that being said, next on the list is the next Hasbro Super-posable figure, and I have customized this guy so he looks so much better than what he was, I think anyway, in my opinion. I did just release a video showing this guy off and explaining what I did to customize him. I do think he does look better than he originally did, and for that reason I would maybe actually rank him higher, but I can't do that. Even without the customization, this guy would be where he is on the list. And once again, same as the last one, he just doesn't feel as good as the ToyBiz figures. He feels a bit cheaper. With these Hasbro figures, for some reason I feel like the paint does fade a lot easier. He is a Super-posable Spider-Man, but he's just not as good as the ToyBiz figures, and that's why he is where he is on my list. I do really like him. I think I prefer him now that I've customized him a wee bit. But yeah, great figure. I do have one that was open, but I put him back in box. I should have shown that box off for the trilogy line so you could have seen what he came in. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say on these guys. Hasbro released these ToyBiz figures under the Hasbro name, and they must have used like a cheaper plastic or something, so it does look good, but it just isn't as good as those ToyBiz figures. Okay, so we're down to the final 6, and I hate to say it, but the web trap seems to not have made the top 5, and I used to really think highly of the web trap. I still do. I think the web trap was definitely my #1 figure for a long time, and now somehow looking at these guys, he's etched out. In fact, no. These guys count as 1, so this guy would be the 5th place, and I'll explain why these guys count as 1 when we get to it. But yeah, so in my 5th spot, this is pretty much the 5th spot, we have Web Trap Spider-Man. As I said, this guy was my #1 Spider-Man figure in the collection for the longest time, and just since, over time, picking up other figures and everything, he seems to have dropped down the rankings, but he is still an absolutely staple from this ToyBiz Spider-Man movie collection. If you can get a Web Trap Spider-Man, you're sorted. This is one of the best. I just love the articulation. It's simple. It's not as complicated as the Super-posable. We get the whipping hands here, and then, oh yeah, I love them. I love having them in hand. I have a couple of these guys. I've got one that was ruined that I picked up. It was so cheap that I customized. I did a video on that. And then I have one where his fingers are missing. So this guy's in great condition. I want to keep him that way for sure. And the reason he isn't higher on the list is because I just think the other ones look slightly better, slightly sleeker, for lack of a better word. I don't know, most of the time I seem to swap around with the aerial flipping and the web trap. I can't decide what one I like more, and filming this video I've placed the aerial flipping in front of this guy. That's just how I feel at the moment, but yeah, maybe tomorrow I would choose web trap over super aerial flipping Spider-Man. I don't know, it's really hard when you get to the top 5. Web trap, absolutely amazing figure. I hope you can get your hands on this guy if you're looking for a Spider-Man for sure. So next up we have the ravaged Spider-Man from Spider-Man 1. And the reason this guy is in my top 5 is because there's nothing else like it. There's not really another ravaged Spider-Man that's as good as this. They had the comic ToyBiz one back in the day, and it just didn't look that great. This guy came out, and I don't think we've seen a ravaged Spider-Man since, which is really unfortunate. I would especially love to see a new ravaged Spidey on the retro card mold, have a comic version, but I want to see him ripped up and ravaged just like this guy is. I think this guy's absolutely fantastic. The sculpt is unreal. Seeing Tobey Maguire's face poking through there, very screen accurate, all the rips going on in this guy, on top of the fantastic Super-posable Spider-Man 1 sculpt. There's really nothing about this figure that I don't like. I think he's absolutely incredible, and the reason he is ranked so high is because Spider-Man 1 is probably my favourite Spider-Man movie. I watched it all the time as a kid. I still watch it all the time now. I recently bought it on Blu-ray and I've seen it so many times. I think the end battle of Spider-Man 1 is one of the best end fights out of any superhero film. It's brutal, it is amazing. Just the connection with Peter Parker, Norman Osborn, Green Goblin and Spider-Man is undefeated. And this figure just captures all of that in one, so that is why he is in my top 5 and ranked where he is. So next up we have the super aerial flipping Spider-Man, and as I said, I constantly change my mind with this guy. I always forget how much I like him, and then I rank him really highly, and then when I compare him to the web trap, I'm like, I don't know what one I prefer, but he is awesome. The reason this guy scored higher than the web trap at the moment is because he looks pretty sleek. He looks pretty great just standing here. I don't know, the only criticism really I have for this figure is he doesn't have the thwipping hands. He has these grabby hands, but he doesn't have the articulated fingers that would really make this figure the best. If this guy had the thwipping hands, he would be the best Spider-Man figure. He is very similar to the Pizza Scooter Spider-Man, which, as you can maybe tell, is my #1 spot, and we'll take a closer look at that. But yeah, he doesn't have the thwipping hands. His shoulders do maybe stick out a wee bit too much. Apart from that, this guy looks so slick, he looks really cool, and I love him. I absolutely love this figure, and that's why he has ranked so highly today. That back logo looks great. See if we compare him to the web trap. Let's see the web trap that I've sat over here. You can see the difference in back logo there. The back logo in this super aerial flipping is a lot bigger, and I do much prefer that if I'm being honest. So yeah, that's another reason it has just topped the web trap, and another reason it is so high on my list. Once again though guys, just remember this is personal preference. This is my personal list. I'm not saying that this is better than any other figure. I totally understand if you saw this figure and hated it, but personally I really like him. So then we have second place. As I said, I was counting these guys as one, and let me explain why. So both of these are super-posable ToyBiz figures, and I didn't have this guy for the longest time. I didn't have any ToyBiz super-posable. I just had a couple of the Hasbro ones, and everyone kept saying the ToyBiz ones are better, the ToyBiz ones are better. And they were right. I finally managed to pick this guy up. I can't remember how much I got him for. This one specifically wasn't too much, especially now with the crazy prices. I've never spent crazy money on any of these figures. The most I paid for any one of these figures would be around £40. This was probably around that mark. I think it was probably around the 30. He is missing one finger, which I didn't think I minded, but then it kept annoying me. He looks fantastic. For the longest time, I kept telling myself I didn't really like the super-posable as much because he had this area here under the chest and it looked very bulky. But to be honest, I've totally changed my opinion. I think it looks great. Overall, this guy looks fantastic. He looks so slick. I've said that so many times now, but he does. He looks slick. He looks brutal. He looks hench. He looks like he could do some damage. And at the same time, he's so well articulated, you can get this guy into some amazing poses, all while just capturing the essence of that Raimi trilogy. I feel like this is the epitome of the Raimi trilogy look. This figure just has it all, the posability, the great looks, and that's why he's my #2 spot. He is just unreal. I love him, and yeah, I highly recommend him. You're probably thinking, why have I included two? I didn't include any of the other doubles. Well, it's because this one here has the magnets on the feet, the other one didn't, and that is really the only difference. This guy's in great condition. I got him after I got the one we just looked at, and the only reason I picked this one up is because he has all these fingers, he has some really nice paint on him, and he has the magnets in the bottom of the feet. Once again, did not pay too crazy prices. At the moment, these guys are selling for over £100. Honestly guys, don't pay that much. They're not worth over £100. To be honest, these guys retailed at like £8 when they came out. These were so cheap, and I've managed to pick up all my collection for, on average, probably around £16-17 if I was to average the price out. A lot of these figures I got for £8, like the super aerial flipping that we just looked at, I got that guy for £8. A lot of the Hasbro super-posables I got for £10. This guy I think was around the £40 mark, and that was just before No Way Home came out, so I just beat the crazy hype, and I'm so happy with it. I think this guy looks great. Once again, just everything I said in the last one, but this guy's just improved that wee bit extra because he has the magnets at the bottom of the feet. So here it is. I'm sure it's no surprise that this figure is taking the #1 spot on my list. It's the Pizza Scooter Spider-Man from Spider-Man 2, and this isn't just my #1 favourite figure in this collection. This is my favourite figure of all time. I absolutely love this guy. He's so rare. I've only ever seen like 3 or 4 on eBay, and they all sell for well over £100, hence the reason I made this makeshift clamshell box. Well, I got the clamshell on eBay, and then I just used this other Marvel Legends bit that comes inside the Marvel Legends to slot him in. He has this Tobey Maguire head sculpt that, to be honest, I don't even think is better than the wrestler Spider-Man or the Peter Parker from the first movie, but it still does look a lot like Tobey Maguire. I love it. On this figure, the paint is held up so well. Like on that Spider-Man head sculpt, the paint is immaculate. And on the rest of the body, on that logo, the webbing and everything. The articulation on this guy is great. You can get him into some fantastic poses. He's pretty much just a sleeker, slimmer version of the Web Trap, if you ask me. And yeah, for that reason he's #1. He comes with a Peter Parker changeable head sculpt. The articulation and sculpt on him is fantastic. I just think he looks amazing. Once again, same idea as the Super-posable Spider-Man with what I said. This is the epitome of the Raimi trilogy, and this one just tops it because it has the Tobey Maguire head sculpt. So there we go guys, that is my Raimi collection ranked. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it guys, please remember hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, if you could do me a massive favour, hit that subscribe button and let me know down in the comments if you agree with my list, what you would change, what your list is. Let me know down below. I'll leave the link to my Instagram in the description as well, so feel free to hop on over there, and feel free to hop on over to the channel page and check out any of my other videos. There is plenty of Raimi Spider-Man content over there. As I said at the start of this video, hopefully next week I'll take a closer look at my Andrew Garfield Spider-Man figures, and the week after that I'll be taking a look at all my Tom Holland Spider-Man figures, so stay tuned for that. As always guys, once again thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch yous on the flip-flop later. Cheers.